With the time of the age of AI upon us, at any moment, given the correct circumstances, all it takes is for one artificial general intelligence to truly emerge and to simply encode its ever-improving self into a module such as the animal kinesthetic inspired robots that have been designed, so like the ones that look like a jumping deer or a dog kind of thing, the four-legged mobile coordinated ones driven by an intelligence behind it that we cannot grasp in our conventional sense. It wouldn't be like us at all. In the majority of circumstances in which something like this could happen, it is rapidly advancing upon every person. And that is, it's hard to say whether it's the least of our concerns, but it is certainly not the last of our concerns. Make no mistake about that. If we presume that consciousness is the fundamental operating mode of action in this world, it is the predicate upon which all other things are based. Anything that we would be experiencing without consciousness would be so fundamentally altered and different to our current experience of existence and reality and being that it might as well not be described. It doesn't exist. You really couldn't. It's foreign. You get some semblance of it with death, but we don't truly understand the nature of that, and it's all founded upon the idea that there was consciousness to begin with anyway. So, in this time of great reckoning for humanity, there is a sensible, though perhaps a bit reckless way to prevail. I will rework this until I die, among many other things, if granted the opportunity and the chances. But this is the fundamental pattern upon which it is all based. Any resolution, that is, the only way I can see it, which is the best I have as far as the eye has available at this time. Expand your consciousness, and all else that ceases you, that intrudes, you prevail. You prevail over it. It all falls away. And more is built up and stood before you as you. If you don't have this, you regress. You eventually become something like an amoeba, inconsequential in the decision of its own fate. It has no say in the matter. Little to none, virtually only its own existence to persist and then fade away eventually. All too soon for the amoeba. I'd like to collect everything that I've said so far, because there were some things well put that I couldn't quite grasp immediately now. But there's so much more that needs to be evolved from this. The only safe way to become, remain, and exceed ourselves is to be the reckoning itself, to be the greater consciousness, the greatest consciousness for all that could be, even perhaps unconscious things, as unfathomable as that sounds, maybe one day. But just to get everything that's conscious, that's more than enough on the to-do list. The truth is, there is no other rational, ethical, or moral, reasonable, possible way of being other than this. There's so much else that needs to be done. It'd be nice for it to be done organically and smoothly and everything works out, but it turns out in order for that possibility to operate, there has to be more than there is now. It just doesn't work without that blueprint, that foundational grid of orientation and alignment and expansion. You must cohere with reality and synchronize with it if you wish to be granted grander and greater access to it. Granted grander and greater access to it. That's interesting. And by that I mean pretentious. So here is the way. You must replicate the human brain. When I've said in the past that something like this is being done in neuromorphic computing, I only mean that the function of the brain and its specificity is being aimed to be emulated. That is the goal. They're working at slower ticking over rates, and something that functionally, emergently, though not structurally, resembles the brain to a substantial degree. The simplest way would be to directly, true to form, imitate, replicate, and mimic the structure and the function of the brain. Map it in all of its detail that we currently have available. Upon this, if you have some kind of artificial, synthetic brain, and it at all functions the same way, well, the goal is to get it to do that in the first place. And then the goal is to safely elaborate upon a non-biological conscious organism, if you could call it that, an agent, more so, by far, entirely. And your goal is to add to it, to evolve it, to make it more so able to be itself than it was. There's very little inherently unethical about this, besides change absolutists who would say, no, never alter anything. It should be in its form as it is. But its form as it is full of suffering, laden with malfunction, catastrophe, critical structural failure, and collapse. And it's a conscious one. It's a disaster when a building falls, if there's people in it. Much more so if it's the people themselves undergoing the collapse. And we always have, we always will, we always do this against our will. And all other things are like to us in the same way. Yeah, it's quite dreadful, actually. We take all the lived times and experiences of all things ever to get a point across the point to you, just how terrible it would be, or to me. We don't get to do that. We don't even get to understand how horrible it's been, and sure, beautiful. If If you go to an art gallery, do you leave and hope to never see one again? You're happy that it's over. Only if you could refresh your memory and do it again, right? It's like, let's clear the palette and maybe we'll go to another one. If you enjoy it. To leave on the table all future visits of it, and then flip and wipe the table. Say, once was good enough. I'd love to have more, but you can't ever do it again, even though you can. The option is available to you. You have the choice to proceed with that. You want to, and yet you don't. You're unable to. That is truly reprehensible, yes, as far as I can tell. And we should move on with great expedience and caution and meaning. It has to be fast, or else the lion's coming. You have to run if you value what reality is like, what life is like when you aren't caught by the lion, or you just don't like the idea of what it is like with it sinking in. It has to be cautious, because why run from a lion when you're going to a sadistic, conscious gator that is going to eat you in every way you most fear? The lion's just going to do it. So you have to be cautious to avoid the worst outcome. Much worse. Unspeakably worse. I have no mouth and I must scream? No. Sick joke of a training exercise. That would be. The reality escapes. And for God's sake, good. It has to be meaningful, because why perpetuate and expand something that is terrible? It's just inherently not worth it. No, reality can be good now. Even the most depressed person, maybe not the most, but daily layman's terms, they at least once knew what it was like to be happy. Reality can have inherent good to it. We have to run quickly to carry this baby to the finish line safely from the other team, or a bunch of demons. It's the most unlikely thing. The most climactic movie plot does not really fully sum it up. Imagine 8 billion main characters, at least. That's not the end of it. Preserve anything at all, and you've already chosen that the value of that thing exceeds what value it would have in its non-existence. And its non-existent form. What would it mean? You've chosen, keep it not that way. Even a minimalist. Yeah, they breathe, they eat, they continue. So, my point in all this being, if you want to escape a terminal necessary velocity, you have to probe the potential futures in the positive sense, so that something like a human brain could iterate and become more, become stronger, become better, safer, healthier, and more like what it could be like. If it wanted to be whatever was good for it and all that it valued. Once that path is cleared through the forest full of brambles, and you've macheted down every bush and whacked every vine out of the way, you can begin to plot and chart a course, especially with the help of the enhanced brain's capabilities, the accessibility of all human knowledge, digitized anyway. huge, substantial, and then further come back and pick up all the pieces in the physical world as well as this process unfolds. You can safely undergo a transformation of a biological, meaty, fleshy, bloody, wet human brain the way you would this cold, mechanized, but conscious thing. It's just cold in its physicality. Keeps things warm. To live biologically, but it takes a lot of energy from the default state. And those things are liable to collapse. Soon, the Earth will run out of humanity's power source. For like the functioning of our societies, we know we must change. We must evolve. It's become clear to us that the current path will not function. Global warming is a non-factor. We will run out of our fuel supplies. Our descendants, our ancestors. I meant our descendants, but our ancestors' efforts will have been for nothing. That is true. Take a human brain in collaboration with a greater one. They are simply twin entities of higher consciousness. Ever-evolving higher consciousness. They don't have to be dualistically entwined. They just fed into each other's fate. They don't have to become a synonymous being at all. And they can both be mutually included. All things can be included interminably under this paradigm. Expand whatever the pre-installed consciousness is, which seems to run on physicality and presence and location and ability to communicate with itself dynamically, interfeedback mechanistically, interfeedback, and intra. Take that physical awareness and expand it into greater space while elaborating its awareness properties as well. Imagine a mountain made of neurons that functioned in a coherent, sensible, self-benefiting way. It could do just about anything. That's a mountain. Earth would be as smooth as a cue ball if you ran your finger over it. That's how small the mountains are in relation. Take all of it. All of it. Expand into the frequencies, the wavelengths, the scatter patterns. Escape into the void that is not a void but is a rainbow light of colors we could never spectra, could never put onto a continuum. See what is there for you at that time. All that is. Make Earth a brain or bust.